Yes, I'm your host, Jay Kirby, joined here by voice acting icon, and my opinion, voice acting legend, R Bruce Elliot, known for many, many roles throughout the years. Captain Ginyu, Commander Pixis, Whitebeard from One Piece. Bruce, thank you for coming on the show. Absolutely means the world to me.
I am delighted to be here. Thank you, Jay.
Of course. Thank you so much. And as always, shout out to our sponsors, Raise Energy, available at repsports.com. Use the promo code Kirbside8 at checkout for a 10% discount, as well as jerky.pro. Use the same promo code Kirbside8 at checkout for a wonderful little snack from them. Both brands are absolutely fantastic. And shout out to our new partners, Collected Comics, in here in Texas. They have 3 different locations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so go check them out, give them their business. And with that, brings you to the man of the hour, R Bruce Elliot, or Bruce Elliot. Thank you for joining me.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Like I said, you have been a voice actor for so long and have voiced
20 years. 20 years
20
last month.
years. Wow.
Was my first show at Funimation.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
Case closed. Case closed was my first show.
congratulations on
Thank you.
20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, I kind of can't believe it myself. Yeah.
But you've voiced so many iconic characters and so many just over the years. What have been, I guess I always start with, where did you get your start? How did you first get your foot in the door when it came to voice acting?
Not my fault. I have an agent in Dallas. I'm still with that same agency. And I'm with the Campbell Agency, talent agency in Dallas, and have been for well over 20 years now. And they sent me on an audition to this place called Funimation back in 2003. And I had heard of it. I'd heard of Dragon Ball Z, and that was about the extent of my familiarity with it. But I went out and auditioned. They were having auditions for lots of different, I think, roles in shows. And in particular, at that point, it was called Detective Conan, which is what it's called in Japan. And by the way, Detective Conan is still running in prime time in Japan. These must be like 25 years now, something like that. Put out a movie every year. It's just incredibly popular. Anyway, so Funimation got the rights to it, and they had auditions. I got sent out on an audition, and lo and behold, I got cast as one of the 3 major characters in the show, which still to this day is quite a rarity for me. Most of my stuff since then, almost all of my stuff since then, has been supporting characters, certainly major supporting characters in some instances. But this was actually a lead. I played Richard Moore in the show Case Closed, for anybody who's familiar with that show. It's still a terrific show, I think. And we had a great time. We spent about a year and a half just solid working on that show. I think ultimately they decided not to call it Detective Conan because somebody somewhere decided that they thought it might be confused, the little 6-year-old boy named Conan might be confused with Conan the Barbarian. So that's what I was told anyway. So it got wound up being called Case Closed. And like I say, we did about 120 episodes. It ran on television, ran on Adult Swim for about a year. It ran the first run for about 6 months, and then reruns for about 6 months, and never quite found enough of an audience, apparently. So that was all I think, and we did 4, 5, 6 movies of the Case Closed movies, and there are many more still. Anyway, but one thing led to another, and at one point somebody said, "Hey, why don't you, hey, well, you're pretty good. Who are you? Why don't you come in and read for this thing that we're doing over here?" So I go in. I think it was Tyler Walker was somebody who had me come in and audition for him for something, and Chris Bevins had me come in and audition for. Chris did a lot of the directing on Case Closed. He directed a show called Samurai 7, and I went in and auditioned for that, and I wound up with the main character in that show. I guess you could call him the main character. He was the head of the samurai combat. And again, one thing led to another, and here we are, a little over 20 plus years later, and I've now been I've done something like 280 roles in about 250 shows over the 20 years, most of which nobody would remember, most of which I don't remember, most of which are like one or two line characters, but they're named. So in those online groups like behindthevoiceactors.com or Anime News Network, anybody that got named in the credits gets a credit on their website. So that got me up to about like 280 characters because I have done multiple characters on some shows. But probably, 6 to 10, maybe 12 are pretty well known. A few more are known by some serious hardcore fans. But some of the ones you mentioned at the very beginning are the ones I'm probably best known for. These days, Whitebeard is very hot because One Piece has gotten very hot again after all these years. Dragon Ball Z, of course, is a perennial favorite. So, and of course, Attack on Titan, which was an amazing show, which just finally concluded after, oh my gosh, after what? After 10 years, I think, something like that.
Close to it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I know personally for me, One Piece really started to kick back up because the Netflix came out. So now everyone's like, all right,
Oh
well
yeah,
now I need to watch the animated version. And then they realize, oh, that's a lot of episodes.
it's a lot of episodes. Over 1,100 now, I think. Yeah,
Believe you're right. I looked it up
yeah,
recently and I don't remember the number, but it's
a
over a
lot.
thousand
It's a
episodes, which
lot.
is
Yeah.
absolutely insane. But I know once again, Dragon Ball Z is one of my go-tos, probably one of my favorites, if not the favorite anime. Um,
Great show.
and
It's a classic. It's a classic.
absolutely, it's actually one of the shows that got me into anime. Is seeing, ironically enough, is seeing Ginyu versus Goku for the first time. That
Oh
was one of
yeah.
the first
Oh.
episodes I saw.
Oh. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
a that's the show that got a lot of people into anime, and it's been around a long time, long before I ever started at Funimation. Now Crunchyroll, of course, which we're not Funimation anymore, we're Crunchyroll. So, but
right. Um, and then I know because I'm currently in the binge. I'm not to the finale yet, but I'm really close. Commander Pixis in Attack on Titan,
ah, okay, okay,
who
yeah.
who is my favorite character. So getting to interview
Oh
you was,
really?
oh,
Oh great.
absolutely.
Oh great. Oh thank you. Yeah, glad to hear it.
So you didn't start in voice acting. Where how did you get into just regular on-screen acting?
Well, most of my experience before that was on stage. I got cast as the Pied Piper in the third grade in our little third grade opera, little mini operetta of the Pied Piper, and I got cast as the lead by our music teacher in elementary school. Um, and I remember being terrified singing my solo on stage, and that it was not an auspicious beginning to my stage career. But I got interested again, and it really got interested in it in about ninth grade, about junior high school. The Dallas Theater Center had just been built and was a going concern, starting in about the mid 50s, late 50s, and they started having classes for children and teens. And my beloved late mother suggested to my sister and I, suggested my sister, who's 2 years younger than I, she suggested to us that we might like to take classes down at the theater center. And I was like, sure, that sounds like fun. So Marla and I both started taking teen classes at the Dallas Theater Center, and that was pretty cool. And once I got into high school, there was a theater program at my high school, Bryan Adams, here in Dallas, and I started doing one act plays and things like that. By the time I was a senior, I had the lead in the senior play. Boy, oh boy, was that a big deal. I was I was the title character in Father of the Bride as a senior in high school. And then so I was pretty interested in it when I went to college. By the time I got out of college, I knew that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an actor. And I started working community theater in Dallas after a few years of community theater, by the way, means not paid, it's all free, had to do other things, waited a lot of tables back in the day.
As former
Um,
community stage member, I understand.
oh yeah, but that's a great place to start, and it's a wonderful community, and the Dallas theater community is still a wonderful community. I feel part of it. I haven't been on stage now in a number of years. Longest I've gone probably since high school. And there are multiple reasons for that, but anyway, so started doing community theater, and after a while, I auditioned for a dinner theater show, and I wound up on tour, doing a dinner theater tour based out of Dallas. And I did that for about 8.5 months. I was the constable in Fiddler on the Roof with a really wonderful cast, and we toured around in Indiana and Ohio and Texas. And I came back, and the next year I got cast in another dinner theater tour of South Pacific. I was Luther Billis in that show, and at that point, that was an equity tour. Those were equity tours, but not everybody had to be equity at that point. But by the time I did my second tour, I was a must join. So I have now been a member of Actors Equity Association, which of course is the professional stage actors, I guess, and stage managers union for, gosh, a long time. Well over 40 years now. And I'm still a member, even though I haven't been on stage. Hope to get back there one of these days. But anyway, I've had three different agents in town. An agent came to a show that I was in, and I talked to her afterwards and signed up with her. And in fact, she's the one that got me the Fiddler on the Roof audition, the dinner theater tour. And ultimately, I was with another agency in the 80s and 90s, and then switched to the Campbell agency where I am now, right at the beginning of this century, I guess. And so I've been with Campbell about, I guess, gosh, 23 years, about 23 years, something like that. And so, and they send me on auditions. So I've done some film stuff. I've done some TV stuff. As I say, most of my acting experience was on stage, but I did get some on-screen experience. I have all my stuff is small parts, but with lines. I did 3 Walker, Texas Rangers when that was filming here in Dallas. Got killed in 2 of them, once on screen, once off screen. By the way, those are showing up on cable lately. I've been watching some of my old Walker, Texas Rangers lately. What else? I'm in some movies. I'm in JFK. And a movie called Fletch Lives was my first real feature film. I had a scene with Chevy Chase in a movie called Fletch Lives. That was when I was in New York. I lived in New York from 85 to 90. Anyway, and then like I say, in 2003, this agent said, how'd you like to go to this place called Funimation and audition for, doing the voice of a character? Sure, why not? What else you got? You bet. What else am I doing? And here we are, 20 years later.
And here you are with a solid resume, if I might say.
Could be worse. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. I feel very fortunate. I really do.
I can imagine just the fact that I can't name all of your characters because there's so many
I can't either.
is
I don't know
enough
anybody that can.
I could probably find someone in the anime community
Find
who
a
knows,
list.
oh, I know this like my brother, he's one of the other people on Kirbside. And he is also an aspiring voice actor. He's down here in Texas with me. He has this innate ability of, we could watch any anime and he'll be walking through the room and someone will have a monologue or some dialogue and be like, oh, that's so and so from this, and then just walk
Oh,
out. Like, how do you remember that that's that person?
there are some with that ability. I will recognize some of my friends' voices sometimes when I'm watching anime, but frequently if I'm in the booth and recording, and I will hear a cue and I go, gosh, who is that? Or is that Michael Tatum by any chance? Or is that, I'm usually wrong. Particularly with Tatum, he's so versatile. I Michael Tatum's one of my best friends. We co-directed a show at Funimation. First thing I ever directed on Romeo and Juliet. And he's so versatile and he's so talented with his voice. Very hard for me to pick him out, but keep trying. Anyway,
No, no, that's wonderful insight. But do you feel, having jumped between three different mediums, both stage, TV/movies, and voice acting, any like well, I know that there is differences, but what's the biggest difference to you as far as recording lines for an anime versus recording things in front of a camera and then performing in front of live people? Like,
yeah.
is that a big culture shock to you? Like a whiplash?
Well, they are, yeah. I mean, there's of course there are similarities among those, but differences for sure. Um, it was a bit of a culture shock going into voice acting to begin with. Uh, I had to learn the whole technique from the very beginning, and I didn't know much about it. I had done some on mic stuff. I had done like a couple of radio spots, maybe in the 80s and 90s. Not a whole lot of experience with that, but the idea of putting on the headphones, putting on the cans, as we call them, and hearing and watching the video on the screen over here, and watching the lines over here, um, and hearing, you get beeps in the headphones, when it's about to start, and they play the video, and as your line is coming up, you hear beep, 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 and then on where that fourth beep would come, that's when you're supposed to start talking. Um, that was interesting. That was certainly different than anything I'd done before, and it took me a while to get the hang of it. I think I probably have gotten it pretty well by now, but um, it uses a lot of what I like about it is that it uses a lot of the same chops. I still get to, as I say, I don't have to put on makeup or costume. I don't have to learn a lot of lines, which I never minded, which I always kind of liked, and that on stage and in film or TV both. Um, but that's not required. You go into the booth, and what's different is you've got to be right on the first time. Essentially, you see the lines you're going to say, and 5 to 10 seconds later, maybe a minute later, if there's any discussion about what's going on with the director, you are saying those words. And if the director likes it, then that's it. That's the take that they're going to use. Sometimes we'll do multiple takes, not always, but you got to go in ready to go and ready. It's easier when it's a character that you've done before. So I got pretty familiar with Whitebeard over the many years well, actually, it wasn't years that I actually did Whitebeard. It was the period of a number of months actually when we did the Whitebeard arc
Mm.
of One Piece. But Pixis, for instance, he was over a period of several years that Pixis was in Attack on Titan, because he was not in all the episodes by any means. Makarov in Fairy Tale, much the same way. Got to be a character that I knew and loved. We spent 10 years on that show from beginning to end, and I got to know him, and so the voice would be there, and the character would be there. But these days I go in and I do something new. I'm going in. Is it tomorrow? Tomorrow or next week? I'm going into Crunchyroll to do a new character on a new show. And I don't know much about the show. I've seen I guess a Japanese trailer for it. I can't say what it is until I'm allowed to, until I'm given permission to. But it'll be a new character and a new show, and so that will be an interesting experience, and probably work with the director a little bit on what kind of character this is, and maybe what his general story is, what if there's an arc to his character, if he goes someplace, um, um, not just physically but intellectually or spiritually, or if there's an arc to his character. We'll talk about that a little bit and find a voice that works for it. But so I look forward to that. That's always an interesting challenge. Uh, anyway, where are we?
But no, wonderful. Thank you. That being said, because you say you've gotten to voice all of these Makarov, you've gotten to voice Pixis, you've gotten to voice Whitebeard. What has been either the most fun character that you voiced or the most challenging character that you've gotten to voice?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's hard. Um, because I enjoy the work. I always enjoy going in. Every time I'm go in the booth, we'll chat for a minute with the director and the engineers. And it's generally just three of us in the studio, director and engineer on the other side of the glass, and me in the booth. And we'll talk for a minute, whatever's going on, and I will always say, "Okay, let's play. Let's play," because this is still play to me. This is something I really enjoy, and it keeps the child, my inner child, alive and alert, and keeps him going. Um, Gosh. Well, Richard Moore was an awful lot of fun, my very first character, because he's a bit of an idiot. I don't know. Are you familiar with Case Closed?
I can't say that I am, to be honest with
Well,
you.
it's a fun show. Now you'll have to take a look at it now once we
I
finish.
I definitely will have to.
Go
I
back and
definitely will.
find some old Case Closed. Now it's been picked up by, I believe, a California company now, and they've been dubbing shows after the ones that we did 20 years ago. So there are some new Case Closed episodes out there. I have not seen them, I must say, but I can't imagine that they'd be any better than we were. We had a really good cast. Colleen Clinkenbeard, by the way, was played my daughter Rachel, and Allison Victorin was the voice of little Conan, and I was the voice of Richard Moore. And Richard is an adult detective, and Conan is a teenage boy named Jimmy Kudo. And in the very first episode of the series, he gets poisoned by some bad guys, and they've used an experimental poison which doesn't kill him, but in fact shrinks him down to the size of about a 6-year-old. And so he decides that he better change his name to protect those around him. And he changes his name to Conan, and he comes to live with me and my daughter Rachel. Rachel is Jimmy Kudo's, his teenage version of himself. They are boyfriend and girlfriend. So there's a big mystery, of course, through the first couple of seasons at least, is like, what happened to Jimmy Kudo? He just sort of disappeared one day. But here's little Conan who shows up, and Conan then has the brilliance as a detective of his teenage self, Jimmy Kudo, and I'm of course am the adult detective. And as I say, Richard is a bit of an idiot. Uh, he's always jumping to the wrong conclusions, and Conan is the one that has to solve all the mysteries. So Richard has some redeeming qualities. He certainly loves his daughter, but he loves to get drunk, and he loves to carry on and act the fool. So that was a lot of fun to play. Um, Whitebeard was a lot of fun. Just to find characters that I loved. Makarov, I really loved being Makarov in Fairy Tale. That's such a wonderful show, and there's so many different facets to it, and it has a bit of everything. It's got tragedy and comedy and love stories and violence and death and destruction and everything that makes life worth living. Um, those are the ones off the top of my head that I have really enjoyed. Pixis Pixis was a very cool character to play. I love doing that. Um, I like doing narration. I've gotten to narrate some shows, and that's always fun. I did a show. Oh, yeah, this brings back some memories. I did a show called Sergeant Frog, and I was the narrator on Sergeant Frog, and that may have been the funniest show that I ever worked on. And the narrator, in fact, was almost a character in that show because the narrator every once in a while would make his own comments about what was going on. And at one point, and he talks about his marriage is not doing too well, and he has a gambling problem, and he's in debt, and at one point he gets angry about something, and he stomps out. And I literally walked out of the booth door and slammed it shut, and didn't appear for several more episodes. And they brought in somebody else. They brought in my friend Emily Gray to be the narrator for several episodes until the original narrator finally came back. And that's a very funny show. If any of you guys out there have not seen Sergeant Frog, watch some Sergeant Frog. We had a great time recording. We just laughed and laughed and laughed while we worked on that show. So that's one that was great fun to work on. Absolutely recommend Sergeant Frog. Check out Sergeant Frog. You won't regret it.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing hysterically because I love comedy like that. I love a good fourth wall break. So if a narrator is
Yeah.
in
Oh
on
yeah.
if a narrator's in on the story, just be like, you know what?
Very
I'm done with
unusual.
this. Storms out.
Very
Oh,
unusual. Yeah.
well, I'm the new
And I did this
narrator.
sort of old style, sort of, almost TV kind of narration. Well, here it is. It's a beautiful day in the Hanata household. Just that kind of narrator voice that I used to remember hearing in cartoons when I was a kid watching Saturday morning TV. That kind of narration. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm definitely gonna add Sergeant Frog to my watch list
Oh,
because
yes. Oh,
now I'm in
yes, you
tears and I
must.
need to see this.
You must.
Um, so so speaking of your voice roles and some of your choice of voices, I should say, do you ever ironically, I found it online, it said your trademark. And some people could also see that as a little bit of typecasting. Do you ever feel typecast when they pick you to voice the older sagely mentor,
I
much
knew that
like
was coming.
more,
Yeah.
because Makarov and Pixis are both,
Yeah.
the ironically designed the same way, the white mustache who has
Oh, yeah.
to wrangle in the hero. Like, do you ever feel typecast, or are those just parts that you really enjoy playing?
Well, both. Yes, yeah, I basically enjoy everything I get to do. At least I certainly try to. Yeah, well, as I've gotten older, and the gray hair is kind of a giveaway. I'm no spring chicken anymore. Um, and and in particular, I guess in the last few years, where there's been quite a bit of a turnover in directors and people like that at Crunchyroll. Um, People won't know me from 20 years ago. They don't know what I did 20 years ago and where I played a lot of middle-aged guys, you know. But as I've gotten older in particular, yes, I seem to be playing a lot of grandpas, a lot of older guys, and I can do that. That's just fine. I like to think that I can still pull off a middle-aged guy, and I do have some friends that are still directing, and I'll get in the booth, and it's not somebody who's 70 years old. I go, yay, okay, yes. I like to think that my voice is versatile enough that I can do basically whatever they got for me. I always wanted to do kids, but never, nobody would ever let me play little kids. But I still think I could do little kids, but they won't let me do it. So I don't know what. Anyway, so yeah, I don't mind at all. It's fun as long as I want to work. I want the work. I want to play different characters and different shows and do different things. So bring it on, whatever you got.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, I had a friend that's a fan send me a question. Um
Okay.
in the same vein, what would be a role that you'd love to give a try, or a voice that you'd love to dub of a character that hasn't been dubbed yet, or is going to be
Oh,
dubbed in the future?
oh gosh, I don't know. I I haven't seen that much anime that hasn't been already dubbed.
Mm,
Most of what I watch, I must admit, is shows that I'm in. Not always. I do have a subscription to both the Funimation still has a Funimation channel,
mm.
and I also subscribe to the Crunchyroll channel, so I'm able to watch a whole bunch of stuff. So I try to watch all the stuff that I'm in, and in particular, it's really nice when I can. Sometimes I can watch an episode in Japanese that has not been dubbed yet that I'm going to be dubbing. That's been a fairly recent occurrence that I've actually been able to watch an episode in Japanese with character that I'm going to dub maybe in 2 more days. I'm going to be dubbing that character, so and I get to see what they do. But that's pretty rare. I haven't, I like a lot of anime movies. Certainly have seen a lot of movies. Some of which I've been in, not very many of those, but a few. As far as shows are concerned, I can tell you a role or two that I wish I had gotten instead of somebody else.
Mm,
But as far as stuff that hasn't been dubbed yet, I probably haven't seen it. I probably haven't seen it yet.
that's fair. That's fair. Um, I guess with that, I could ask, is there is there any show, because you said you watch your own shows, and
As much
probably
as I can. I have not watched all 1,100 episodes of One Piece.
that's fair.
I may
That's
get to it one of these
completely
days before I
fair.
die, but then again, I may not. We'll see.
I, I'm only probably in the hundreds, maybe. Don't come for me, One Piece fans. It's not your
Yeah, no,
fault.
yeah. And Whitebeard, you see One Piece, you see Whitebeard in the first once in the first early episodes, just one time, and then he doesn't show. I got cast and I did one episode like the next week, and I didn't do any more Whitebeard for literally 5 years
Wow.
because he doesn't show up again until like in the 400s. So it was a long time. Happily, they gave me some other stuff to do in the meantime. So actually, One Piece is the show in which I think I have done the most characters. And I've actually done a character or two since Whitebeard, but I did two or three minor characters before we got to Whitebeard. So yeah.
Wonderful. Now I'm quickly burning through. I'm almost through Attack on Titan, and I'm also watching Full Metal Alchemist right now. I haven't gotten to your character's
Oh.
introduction, but I'm looking forward to it.
In Full Metal?
Yes, in Full Metal.
Okay, well, I'm early on in Full Metal. I play Boss Gran, and
Yes.
he doesn't last very long. I'm sorry to say. Didn't know it when I first got cast. Yeah, he's only in the first like 5 or 6 episodes before he gets killed off. I'm sorry to say, but
Um,
I have watched a lot of that show. I probably haven't watched all of it, but I watched a lot of it because I thought it was so well done and the people were so good. Yeah, and so very well done.
so being not being pretentious when I say this, but being a fan of your work, being a fan of shows that you're on, what are some of the characters that either you've voiced or that you've just seen in those shows that have really connected with you the most?
Oh, um, well, I'm not a parent, but something in the roles where I played a father or a grandfather have touched me inside. And Makarov is actually the first one that comes to mind, where he thought of all of the members of the guild as his children and said so many times. And I love that about him, and that he sacrifices himself actually more than once. That's in that series. Fortunately, it's anime logic, so he comes back. But I love the fact that he felt very fatherly. Felt like a parent to the kids, to the young ones. Um, um, Whitebeard is very similar, different kind of character, much rougher, kind of fellow, but has this great tenderness for his crew, his sons. He calls them his boys, his sons, and they call him pops. You know, they treat him as a father, and he feels like a father to them. And in some of the flashbacks, so most of the Whitebeard stuff was done years and years and years ago, but did come back in flashbacks in the last year or two, where you see him as Edward Newgate, as the young Whitebeard, where he still has hair. Uh, uh, and in fact, when Funko came out with the Whitebeard pop last year, they came out with a chase pop, which was young Whitebeard, which was Edward Newgate Whitebeard, with the blonde hair and a captain's hat and all that kind of stuff. Um, and he talks in the flashbacks. You see him as a young man on a ship, and he talks about all he ever wanted was a family. And so when he finally had his own ship and his own crew, they became his family. And well, I won't spoil anything for anybody that hasn't seen all of One Piece, but you know, Whitebeard makes sacrifices for his sons, and they mean more to him than anything. And I love that about those characters. And like I say, I'm not a parent, but something in me really connected to those characters in particular.
No, that's absolutely wonderful. And no, like I said, me and my brother, we were literally just talking about Fairy Tale the other day. Um, and it started off as almost like jokes because there's so many animes where like the trope is the power of friendship will help. And then we got to Fairy Tale and we're like, no, the whole thing is the power of family. If you're in Fairy Tale,
Ah,
you're family.
your family.
And
That's right. That's right.
and very much like you said, Makarov sees every single character as family.
That's right. That's right.
So, speaking of that, speaking of just, I guess, the impact that the characters had on you, what's it been like? Because, I mean, you and we met at a convention. We met at Cowtown Comic Con. What is it like to
Right.
be out in conventions and get to meet all these fans that so many of your characters have affected and so many of your characters have you know either A, inspired, or B, just like really really grabbed them as mentors, or ones that they really connected with the best.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love going to cons. I love going to conventions. You know, I've been doing it for a number of years. I think my first one was like maybe 10, 12 years ago. And then I didn't do anything for another year or two. In recent years, I've started going to conventions more and more. I finally got an agent to get me to conventions. So I've been all over the country now. The biggest con I've ever done was San Diego Comic Con this last year, which was an amazing experience. But I've done little cons and big cons, and I love them. I love meeting the fans, and I cannot hear too often somebody tell me how wonderful I am, and how my character, you know, saved their life, or you know, brought them some particular kind of joy, or that's just that's food to me. That just feeds my soul, and I love getting that one on one with fans. It means the world to me. It really does.
That's wonderful. I know that's how I felt when I got to meet you at Cowtown. Because I I didn't realize how many characters you voiced that I was so familiar with, but I as
Oh,
soon as I
okay.
saw Pixis on your board, I was like, "Oh," because I was mid through my binge of Attack on Titan, and I was like, "I have to meet Commander Pixis." And so many of my friends are One Piece fans, so when I got to tell them that I was interviewing Whitebeard, their eyes lit up.
Great.
Um,
Wonderful.
and so in I mean, like you just said, it means so much to you. I have to share this story. I told a friend of mine, he's on another show that I pop into frequently. His name's Shaq, and he is in the military. He's an officer. I want to say he's the army, but I don't quote me on that.
Okay.
And when I told him that I was getting to interview you, his eyes lit up. He got so excited. He about jumped out of his chair. But he definitely looks at as specifically Commander Pixis as like the model that he wants to be as an officer.
Oh my. Oh,
Yeah, very much the, strong, very, very intelligent, and very much cares about everyone that serves
oh yeah.
underneath him. So the fact that, he that you voice that character and that I get to tell you this experience, I mean, because that's how I feel. Because I'm also, fans know this, I'm also in the military. I'm not so high up on the totem pole. I'm
Oh,
a little
you
bit
are.
down here,
Oh,
but I definitely, watching Attack on Titan, I'm like, I would serve under someone like
yeah.
Pixis in a heartbeat. And he said he models how he treats his students, because he's in a like a training facility. How he treats his students is how Pixis treats everyone in the
My
Corps.
goodness. Oh
So
my. Wow.
that's just something that the two of us connected on, especially
Wow.
getting coming into this interview.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
Um,
That's marvelous. I love hearing that. Thank you so much.
no, absolutely, because I mean
I
that's
don't take
really,
full credit. It's the way the character's written, but
but I mean
I tried to bring him to life in that way. Sure.
you really do, though. You bring the right demeanor and the right voice to that character, because I mean, to be honest, if you voice Pixis with a little bit higher pitch of a voice, he might not be as serious as a character. It might not be taken as professional, but just the way that you voiced him, and I'm not sucking up, I promise. It just
No, go ahead, suck up.
it just connects the right way.
Well,
And
thank you. I gotta give Mike McFarlane, the director, a lot of credit on that. We actually probably spent more time than I usually spend with a new character, finding just the right voice for Pixis. It did take I like this is like I say, this is going back over 10 years now. But I remember working hard on trying to get that voice right. And it took us a while until we finally got something that pleased Mike and that I felt like I could sustain and make a good character out of. So Mike McFarlane gets a lot of credit for that. Of course, he gets the lion's share of the credit for the success of that show because he's just a terrific director. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to work with Mike.
I'll definitely give him some love from us humble fans, because
I will
the
certainly do it next time I see him, which I hope will be soon. I usually run into him up in the halls at Funimation at Crunchyroll. Sorry, it's so hard to get out of that habit.
I mean, I'm subscribed to both, so fair enough.
Good, good.
um so with that, we'll wind down a little. I always ask this whenever I get a chance to talk to voice actors. Is there anything that you would give as advice to young up and coming voice actors, people really trying to get their foot in the doors?
Well, be prepared for a lot of rejection. But that's true of actors. Um, Act in pretty much whatever medium they're working in, you're going to get rejected a lot. It's just, and it's, I gotta say, I think it's a lot harder now to break into voice acting than it was when I started 20 years ago. I had the advantage personally of being quite a bit older than almost everybody else that I was working with when I first started doing voice acting for anime. So I did not have as much competition. But the young people, and of course in anime, 98% of the characters are going to be in their teens or 20s,
Mhm.
because of course, that's the market. That's the target market for most anime shows, and which as it should be. I had some competition, and there's some stuff I didn't get because somebody fellow voice actor, fellow actor, friend of mine got, oh, you got that role. Okay, well, all right, there'll be more. It's tough. It's tough to get into. And in fact, these days, I should ask about this at Crunchyroll. I'm not sure exactly what the procedure is for new people these days. When I first started, they would call up the agencies, the talent agencies in Dallas, and say, we're having auditions for, this and this. They used to have general auditions. Again, they call up the agencies. Please send us some of your best talents and have them come out, and we'll give them a book with a whole bunch of different characters in it, and they can look through and find the ones that they're interested in. Or maybe it's for a specific show, and there might be one character or more than one character that they might possibly be right for. Have them come out and read for this. I'm not sure I don't think they do that so much anymore. Like call people in just for general auditions. I could be wrong. Because I really haven't tuned into what's going on with this now. But I know, just talking to fellow voice actors, when I'm hanging around at Crunchyroll, it's harder to get in now. It's harder to break in now because anime has exploded in the last 10 years, 20 years, certainly last 10 years. It's just gotten huge. It's just what an incredible industry it's become now. And there's literally like thousands of people who would like to have every role that's being cast. So it's tough. And like I say, I'm sorry I don't have specifics on how to get in at Crunchyroll, for instance,
No, that's
except to say
understandable.
go to the website and see what they say on the website, for submissions. Maybe they do take submissions. I had to look that up for my next podcast. I'm gonna look that up at a time.
Have that answer at the ready.
I can have a better answer for that question. Yeah. But be prepared for a lot of rejection, because that's the life of an actor.
That's wonderful advice, because
Oh.
Lord knows, because I do a couple side projects. I'm also bless you. I'm also a professional wrestler, so I've had multiple bookers tell me,
No kidding. Oh,
sorry, we don't have anything for you this month, or I just get left unread. So I understand where you're coming from with that. But as we really start to wind down here, is there anything you'd like to share with the fans? Anything you'd like to put out to the world? Whether it be a message, whether it be, hey, check out this new project that's gonna come out next week.
oh.
Anything you'd like to say to the world before we log off here?
Um, yeah, and it's not anime related at all. And it's political, honestly. And I hope you'll forgive me for a few moments, but
Please go ahead.
this year is going to be the most important year, certainly in my lifetime, for people to vote. Uh, there's some really, really scary stuff happening in our country, and I'm not going to mention any names, but basically everybody knows what I'm talking about, is my guess. And it's going to be so important this year to vote and to get everybody to vote, because our country could be in really, really serious trouble if if we don't get a good result in November. So please vote, everybody. Get yourself educated. If you're not political, this isn't a year when you can get away with that. It's too important right now. It's too important. So this obsesses me right now. And it's just I won't go into detail, and I won't keep blathering on about it. But vote this year. You got to vote. You got to vote. Won't tell you who to vote for. Just vote, and make sure you're educated about what's going on politically, because it's not just politics as usual right now. It's really, really important, and the country is in serious peril, and democracy is in serious peril. So my apologies, but thank you for
No,
asking me that. And that's the message I want to share. I'm telling everybody. I'm
no,
telling everybody. And this year, when I start going to cons, I'm going to work that in every time I get a chance,
no.
because it's
It's absolutely understandable.
You want your
It's
sister to have some choices about healthcare. You want your friends to have some choices about their lives, and healthcare is a big one. That's not the only one, but realize what's going on and vote. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
no, absolutely. And once again, thank you for joining me. Thank you
My
for coming
pleasure.
on.
Thank
It's
you.
been
Thank
an
you, Jay.
absolute honor having you on the show.
Well, thank you.
Um, so much. Everyone can find you online. Super easy to access. Um,
I'm on Twitter and Facebook. I'm still kind of living in the dark ages. I'm not on anything else. I got on Twitter about 3 years ago. It took me forever to finally get on Twitter. Maybe I'll get on Instagram one of these days, or that TikTok thing. Uh, I kind of avoid doing all that as much as I can, but I know it's helpful.
it's understandable.
But you can find me at R Bruce Elliot on Twitter or X. I hate to call it X.
I do too. Don't
And,
worry.
and on Facebook, yeah, Facebook is like the old person's social media now. I understand. Gosh, it was the latest thing when I first started on Facebook. But anyway, that's where you can find me.
Yes, you can find him. He'll be doing appearances here in the Texas area, especially
I will.
January 27th. So,
Yes,
oh,
181 Comics and Collectibles on Benbrook Boulevard
yes.
in Fort Worth.
So I'll definitely see you there. Hope everyone else goes out to visit. But Bruce, thank you for coming on. Thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me.
Well,
Um,
thank you, Jay. You are so welcome. I had a good time. Thank you.
oh,
Thanks for asking.
wonderful. Of course, absolutely. Um, And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate all your love and support here at Curbside. As always, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Sorry, follow us on Instagram. Check us out on YouTube and Twitch. We've got a whole bunch of new episodes of Dice Hard with a Vengeance coming out soon, and we've also got a bunch of cool interviews coming down the line in the next few months. So please check us out. Go follow us everywhere. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys very, very soon.